Under the scorching midday sun, Kan Yo-room stood beneath the zipline tower, wearing a slightly worn red helmet. People around her whispered, "That girl used to be an idol, now she's just a low-level reporter." The words stung, but she managed a faint smile. She'd heard such mocking tones too many times before. One crew member teased, "Try climbing all the way up while imagining your life." She knew what they meant, to remind her of her past as a member of a famous girl group, then her fall from the glamorous entertainment world. A failed former idol, that's what they called her now. But that day, Kan Yo-room made a quiet decision. "I will smile, bury it, and get double the reward." She looked into the camera, making sure her smile seemed natural, even though bitterness was lodged deep in her chest. The shoot went on. Hours passed, yet the crew didn't give her any food. Sitting on a folding chair near the van, a colleague said, "You've been filming for hours, and they still haven't given you anything to eat." Yo-room just chuckled softly. Complaining wouldn't change anything. Her friend, Sinta, approached with a concerned face. "That's why, whenever he gets the chance, he just scolds you," she said quietly, referring to the notoriously harsh producer. Yo-room glanced back and replied, "Before my skin gets ruined, I have to land at least one commercial." Her joking tone masked the exhaustion and ambition still burning inside her. Deep down, Yo-room hadn't truly given up on her dreams. Being an idol might be over, but she knew the entertainment world still had many other doors. Working as a field reporter for an adventure show like this was just one detour. She was learning to endure sharp remarks, suppress her hunger, and still shine in front of the camera. Silently, she seized every opportunity. The camera was her old friend. She knew how to face the lens, control her breathing, and create moments. Even when her legs ached and sweat dampened her face, she made sure every shot captured a strong image. That night, at the team's lodging, she stared into the small mirror in her room. Her hair was messy, her cheeks slightly sunburned. But in her own eyes, she saw someone no less bold than the idol she once was. Now, she was tougher, more cunning in reading situations, and more ready than ever to seize her chance. And tomorrow, when the cameras rolled again, she would smile once more, not just for the crew, but to rebuild her stage. Kan Yo-room sat on a wooden bench under the shade of a small hut. In front of her, an elderly man poured a thick purple liquid into a small glass. "Fermented for 5 years," he said proudly. Yo-room smiled politely, though doubt lingered in her mind. "I rarely show this to anyone," the man continued, as if this were a great honor. Some crew members watching from afar grew uneasy. "Shouldn't we stop her? We don't even know what that drink is," one of them whispered. But someone else replied with a laugh, "You won't die from it, Kan Yo-room." Yo-room took a deep breath. She'd been in stranger situations for the sake of her work. Meanwhile, tensions were rising at the company she worked for. A manager asked sharply, "Why are you being like this to our company's star?" His tone was accusatory. A colleague responded coldly, "The company ended up like this because Yo-room is the main star." The crisis they faced wasn't just about reputation. Another one of the company's top stars had received a military service summons, leaving a huge gap in the show's schedule. "What about the operational costs?" the superior asked with concern. All eyes seemed to turn to Yo-room as if she was the only solution. For Yo-room, this kind of pressure had been part of her life ever since she left the idol world. She knew all too well that in the entertainment industry, one mistake could drown you, but one act of courage could pull you back to the surface. That's why she drank the purple liquid in front of the camera, even though her tongue rebelled and her stomach burned. That scene would later become the most talked about moment in the week's episode. The producer knew viewers loved sincerity and bravery that felt real. For Yo-room, it wasn't just an act for the show. It was another step toward proving she was still relevant, still worthy of being on screen. That night, in the small inn-room, she sat staring at her phone. News about her had already begun spreading on social media. Some praised her, others mocked her, but everyone was talking about her name. Beneath the exhaustion, she felt the same fire she had when she first stood on stage as an idol. Tomorrow, the company's problems might still pile up, and harsh comments might keep coming. But Kan Yo-room knew one thing. She would keep moving forward, swallowing the bitterness of this world and turning it into strength. That morning, the air was stifling. Yo-room stood under the shade of a tree, yet sweat still poured down her face. Her friend came closer and placed a hand on her forehead. Yo-room, you're sweating so much, she said worriedly. Yo-room tried to fight the dizziness, but her friend added, your tongue is also swollen. Yo-room touched her neck. It felt strange, as if something was blocking her whenever she tried to speak. In the yard, Yo-room faced a few people who seemed to be confronting her. What exactly is your problem with me? She asked, confused. Before anyone could answer, a man appeared from the road. Someone muttered, why is that uncle here again? That uncle was running from afar, waving his hands frantically, his face full of panic. Go away, go, he shouted loudly. Behind him, a swarm of large wasps was chasing him down. The others froze in shock, but Yo-room had no idea about the danger. Her eyes were fixed on the black plastic bag she was holding, the same bag the uncle had been carrying earlier when they were together. As soon as he got closer, Yo-room lifted the bag high. Uncle, here, she said, trying to return it to him. She couldn't understand why the uncle seemed even more frantic, dodging away from her. In an instant, the wasps closed in, making everyone scream and scatter. Amid the chaos, Yo-room's body grew weaker. Her breathing became short, and her head spun. Someone quickly shouted for an ambulance. Soon, sirens tore through the quiet village. A 119 ambulance sped down the narrow road between the fields. Villagers stepped aside, some watching with worried expressions. Inside, Yo-room lay weakly, struggling to stay conscious as her vision blurred. At the hospital, she stared at the white ceiling, her eyes half open. The sharp scent of antiseptic filled her nose. An IV drip slowly fed fluid into her body. The uncle, who had been chased by the wasps, now stood outside the treatment room, watching through the glass. Whether in guilt or exhaustion, no one knew. That day, Yo-room might not have realized that the black plastic bag she returned was the reason the uncle kept coming back. But one thing was certain, she had just lived through one of the most chaotic days of her life, caught between scorching heat, a swarm of wasps, and a body that finally gave in. In the dimly lit editing room, an editor replayed Yo-room's latest footage. The man beside him shook his head slightly. I think her articulation is very unclear, he remarked while staring at the screen. On the monitor, Yo-room was smiling brightly, holding a red apple during yesterday's shoot. However, the comment quickly halted when another editor pointed at the viewing statistics. The most watched clip is your video, said a long-haired man, turning toward Yo-room. Still not fully recovered from yesterday's wasp attack, Yo-room stared at her phone screen. Social media notifications poured in. One post even carried the headline, Wasp Attack in the Middle of Day Trip Filming, a clip showing her uncle running away in fear while she stood confused, holding a black plastic bag in her hand. At her agency's office, the atmosphere was slightly noisy. Several colleagues sat together, rewatching the video on the television. The scariest thing for a celebrity is having no comments, one of them quipped, trying to lighten the mood. But it was clear, comments from netizens were flooding in this time, ranging from sympathy to playful mockery. One colleague pulled Yo-room toward the sofa. Look at this, they said, showing her a phone. On the screen was a thumbnail of Yo-room's cheerful smile, decorated with a bee sticker and the word, BZZZ, a playful imitation of a buzzing sound. In the dimly lit editing room, an editor replayed Yo-room's latest. The atmosphere in the office suddenly turned tense. A man rushed in, slightly out of breath. This is urgent, he said, looking seriously at his colleagues. Yo-room, who was sitting on the sofa, turned toward him, puzzled. The man added, I'll be stepping out for a bit, before making his way toward the door. However, before leaving completely, he turned to Yo-room. You stay here. Even if someone has to beg, it should be the president who does it. You're the star of our company. Why should you be the one begging? He said firmly. The conversation continued in the meeting room, now under a more formal atmosphere. The man looked at them. Are you holding on to that segment just because of one sponsor? After giving your best for that segment, does it make sense to inform her only through a text message? A bespectacled man, apparently from the marketing division, responded. That decision came from the sponsor company's marketing division, President O. A middle-aged man added in a light tone, not CIR, but TIR, blaming President O for Yo Room's advertising mistake. But the discussion quickly grew serious again when the bespectacled man said, it can't be helped, she's been hospitalized, and her condition isn't good. A young man, Eng Sub, tried to ease the tension. The facts of the current situation aren't that complicated, he said, showing internal footage of the on-site incident and what the director had done to Yo Room. However, his words were quickly countered. Eng Sub, do you want to get fired? The bespectacled man retorted sharply. President O, who was leading the meeting, looked at everyone. Yo Room has never once leaked anything that happened on location, he said firmly, as if to shut down any speculation. After the meeting ended, he lashed out at the bespectacled man, slamming his fist against the wall. Their voices could be faintly heard, discussing an issue that was clearly far from resolved. Yi-Rim's steps felt heavy as she walked out of the meeting room. The biting words she had just heard still echoed in her ears. Your style balance is off, your bag and shoes don't match. Beauty is a message, fashion is a strategy. To her, it wasn't just criticism, it was confirmation that she had never truly been considered enough. Once, Yi-Rim had dreamed of standing in the middle of the stage, bathed in the glow of spotlights that drew every eye to her. She imagined the cheers of the crowd, the admiring gazes, and her name being called again and again. But in reality, she was only a shadow among the stars. Fans dubbed her the background member, present in the photos, but never truly seen. Her childhood friends, Eun Chai and Si-yeon, had soared to become celebrated public figures. They had once shared the same dream, even the same heartfelt secrets. But now, the two of them shone on television screens, while Yi-Rim walked the quiet corridors of the real world. She worked hard, trained, and sought opportunities, but the doors to the stage always remained closed. That afternoon, she had gathered the courage to meet the head of marketing at a major company, rumored to be the owner's daughter. She wanted to fight for a program she was working on, but without an appointment, she was met only with the polite smile of the receptionist and the words, "I'm sorry, she's busy." When she finally did meet her, the rejection came in a tone that was both cold and confident. I rarely change my mind. And now, after seeing you in person, I'm even more certain. Leaving the building, Yi-Rim walked alone along the sidewalk. The city was noisy, yet inside her there was only a silence pressing against her chest. She looked across the street at a massive billboard, Eun Chai's graceful smile promoting the latest beauty product. The neon lights made her seem even more radiant. Yi-Rim knew that envy was dangerous. Yet, beneath all the wounds and weariness, there was still a small ember burning. Perhaps she had never been given the main stage, but that didn't mean she couldn't build her own. She stopped, took a deep breath, and told herself, if they won't give me a place, I'll create my own. Night began to fall. The street lights flickered on, casting the shadow of Yi-Rim as she walked on, this time standing a little taller.